Hello, I'm Joanna Massey, Director of Learning and Engagement Programs at the Wild Music Institute at Carnegie Hall. And it's my pleasure to welcome all of you to our 2020 Summer Music Educators Workshop. We created Music Educators Workshop to offer resources and inspiration to music teachers and to build a community of shared practice. What began as a year-long workshop for New York City public school music teachers 8 years ago has grown into a large national and increasingly international conversation among educators working in schools, after-school programs, and community settings, and we're thrilled to welcome all of you into this community. While we of course hoped to be together at Carnegie Hall this summer, we're excited that we can still have the opportunity to be together virtually, and we want to thank you for taking the time with everything going on right now to learn and explore with us and with each other over the course of the next week. I wanted to share a little bit about who is participating in the workshop this year. We have about 225 of you joining us from 33 US states and 8 countries. About half of you teach elementary school age students, a quarter of you teach middle school and high school age students, and a quarter of you teach mixed ages. 6 of you just finished your first year of teaching. Congratulations. And 61 of you have been teaching for more than 20 years. Also, congratulations. When we're together in person, we like to have everyone stand and rattle off the years and see who's standing the longest and recognize our longest tenured teacher. I think we'll have to find a way this year, maybe there's a Slack channel we can create so that we can find that person and recognize them. And of course, recognize all of you for the amazing work that you do for your students day in and day out. This is a special workshop for us this year because it's the first time that we're focusing on themes inspired by our Musical Explorers program, particularly how musics and cultures from around the world can be explored meaningfully in the classroom. We hope that the conversations and ideas shared by our faculty and by your peers will be insightful and motivating, especially during what we know is an incredibly challenging time for teaching and learning. I also want to give a huge thank you to our 11 faculty members who have been working hard for several months now to create the workshops and music making experiences and other sessions that we're offering for all of you over the course of the week. They're an amazing group of people, and we're really lucky to be able to benefit from their deep knowledge as both artists and educators. I want to quickly also recognize our learning and engagement team here at Carnegie. Our team works year-round on programming for teachers, students, and families, and the team has done an amazing job putting this workshop together, especially as we've moved into the online space for the first time. You'll be meeting our staff throughout the workshop, and many of us will be moderating sessions, so please say hello and don't hesitate to let us know if there's anything you need. We are really thrilled to kick off this year's workshop with a keynote by Tupac Mantilla. A master percussionist, educator, and speaker, Tupac performs and leads masterclasses and workshops all over the world, many of which highlight the universality of rhythm. His talk today, Learning Through Rhythm, will explore how rhythm can be both an exciting tool to learn and share in the classroom, as well as an enlightening new approach to perceiving and interacting with the world around us. So again, thank you to all of you for being here. I hope you have a wonderful workshop, and I'll go ahead and turn it over to Tupac.
It is the summer of 2018. We are in the middle of the International Body Music Festival, which that particular year is taking place in Ghana, Africa. We're supposed to do outreach activities for the people of the different villages around. And that particular afternoon, we are going to the village of Fenyihata as part of the city of Volta, right at the border between Ghana and Togo. We drive for about 45 minutes, and once we arrive, we have the most incredible welcoming that you can imagine. Kids running all over the place, people coming, hugs, laughs, just smells, colors, just picture all this incredible image of rhythms. As part of all this movement and all this activity around, the kids start pulling us to their homes and to their different places in the village. And the group disintegrates and disappears. And then there I find myself at a home with probably 10 kids and some people around. And they start sharing and moving and pulling me here and there. And all of a sudden, I can see that some of them are becoming frustrated because they're talking to me and sharing things on their dialect and asking things that I can unfortunately not understand. And yet, as much as I try to do efforts to communicate and do faces and, do the monkey or try to play, it's becoming complicated. Only until the moment that one of the girls stands up and does the following. And that rhythm becomes a call that they all seem to know. And it takes a couple of seconds for all of them to be doing. They pull me, they look at me to see if I can respond. And then the third time, we all go together. And then it becomes a game, because those last two claps, we start sharing with each other. We start moving and we start dancing and we start laughing. And then after that, we're able to learn our names because we replace the two last claps with Tupac. Your name. And in that way, we establish this communication and this flow of energy around rhythm and around the movement of our bodies that immediately just bonds us. At that very right moment, I have the possibility to reconfirm once again that rhythm is the collective identity that unites us all. Now, once we analyze the word rhythm, and especially the semantic aspect behind it, we would go to the core or the root, and we would encounter both rhythmus and reos, two words that imply movement determined by a sequence of elements. Every time that I think of a sequence of elements, I go back to that moment in Ghana, and I follow it up with a moment in Bogota, Colombia, teaching kids from the public schools the following rhythm that I would like you to check and practice as part of it to see how you do and let's say how fast you can get it in order to integrate it and potentially learn it later. So check this rhythm for a minute, see how you do with it, and I'll tell you the story behind it. Second one. So I'm going to invite you to play this with me or to see how you do trying to follow up with me, okay? So we're going to take the first one. I'm not going to break it down. I'm just going to ask you to try to go along and play with me. 1, 2, ready, let's try. Second one, try it. Okay? So how did you do with that? The story behind it, it's simple. Back in 2014 when we were teaching this, we were able to measure that kids between 7 and 10 years were able to learn those two particular rhythms in less than 3 minutes. What is the key behind it? What do you think? What's your experience? Have you tried rhythms in your classroom as part of your curriculums and as part of your contents? For us, the key point was language. And the reason why I recall both the stories in Africa and the one in Colombia is because in those two cases, language was the key factor for them to pass it on, to show it to me in Africa, and for us as teachers to be able to pass it on to the children in Colombia. The way for us to convey that, or that in such a short time with such an effectiveness, was connected with the following words. In Spanish, this was tócalo con el tambor, tócalo cantando, tócalo con el tambor, tócalo saltando. In Africa, I couldn't repeat actually the dialect that they shared with me, but once they showed me that first rhythm that I showed to you guys, it was connected with word, it was connected with a story, it was connected with their environment around. In that order, those 3 minutes of learning process started by us showing the kids in Colombia, tócalo con el tambor, tócalo cantando, tócalo con el tambor, tócalo saltando, which means you go ahead and play it with the drum. You go and play, having fun. You go ahead and play it with the drum. You go ahead and play it jumping. That's what the title is behind that. And we would just say it with this rhythm and it's as part of this game. And then we would just put it to the body because we would just go the second try doing something like tócalo con el tambor, tócalo saltando, tócalo con el tambor, tócalo saltando, tócalo con el tambor, tócalo pasando, tócalo con el tambor, tócalo saltando. And the kids would immediately just pick it up and say, okay, I understand that rhythm. I understand what you're sharing with us. And then I'm just trying to follow up with those movements. And in a matter of 4 to 5 minutes, everything was there. Especially the connection. And in Africa, the experience, without even noticing or knowing the dialect, we were able to connect and to feel identified as human beings with and thanks to rhythm. The first purpose for me in this talk is to be able to share with all of you ways to learn through rhythm. The second purpose is to bring your attention to the understanding that everything in life is rhythm. Think of the patterns in the space, the synchronized movements and mechanics of our bodies, the rhythm in our heartbeat, in our breathing, in the impulses of our neurons to create a thought process, in the contraction and release of our muscles to create action, in our steps, in each of our biological cycles, in our DNA chain, in our relationships. Think of the detailed infrastructure of our cities and our means of transportation. Think of the economy. Think of the market, of the algorithms and statistics behind it. Think about the rhythm of the communities that gather to work and to create or to reach collective goals. Think of any technological advancement or any scientific endeavor. And especially think of every single manifestation of nature. It is precisely nature what the primitive men used as a referent for communication and evolution. And by understanding gradually as time went by the cycles around, the rhythms around, and then by imitating those sounds, the ones in the water, in the fire, in the jungle, the sounds of the animals every time they were hunting, then they were able to convey their feelings and their emotions. The body became the instrument. The body through the voice, and the body through the sound. The voice may be imitating a sound, and then maybe a and thus language and communication evolved as they would gather and share those feelings and emotions, and they would express their different experiences. Those experiences became archetypes. And those archetypes were the main reference that allowed specific rhythmic practices and specific rhythmic cultures to grow and to evolve. There is a super important story, perhaps one of the most important ones in terms of rhythm archetypes. And it has to do with an ethnic group called the Efik group in South Nigeria. Around this area, the town Big Kwa was the place where the people of the Abakpa community were living. And in the time of slavery, those people were brought to Cuba and they settled in Matanzas and Havana and Cardenas. And in order, as slaves, to keep their heritage and their traditions, they created a secret group. That group would gather, and the way to be able to belong to this group, or the people that were actually allowed to be part of these encounters where they would just play and share all these rhythms and all this information through music and performing, were the ones that knew the passcode, the key, the clave. That rhythm archetype, that clave, is something that perhaps you guys know, or that probably sounds familiar to you. It was this. I'll do it again. Does it sound familiar? That specific rhythm is known today as the Abakwa clave. And the name Abakwa comes directly from the Abakpa people. That clave, the Abakwa clave, is the rhythm, the mother archetype, and the key for most of all the Western rhythms, cultures, and styles that we know nowadays. So now I want to get you moving and playing a little bit to explore the basic rhythmic archetype of Abakwa, that clave, that key, that pattern created by the Abakpa people in Cuba in order to preserve all these traditions and heritage from South Nigeria. So whether you can just follow me with the steps going like this, or maybe if you want to just simply marching along the beat, the idea is that we do a call response exercise to feel and get in the groove of Abakwa. So I'm going to go for this. Just feel free to do it. Even just standing and following the call response works. So give it a try. I say and then you say. Great, level 2. Now, one more time. Now, give it a try. And the last one. One more time. Great work. Now, as we analyze how Abakwa as a rhythm archetype works, we can easily determine that there are two parts, and this is mostly what happens with claves in general and in rhythm. When you hear, you can totally see that there is a group of two, tak tak at the beginning, and then a group of three, tak 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 tak. And this is a pattern that repeats all around music and in a lot of cultures and genres. Keep it in mind, because with the 2 and the 3 and the understanding of this, we can really unlock a lot of rhythmic archetypes and really get to the core of cultures and rhythms around the world. So this is an exercise of that. I hope you can use it for your teaching. But let's dive now into how do we understand 2 and 3s in the cosmic world. So the fact of just bringing up the word cosmos already implies a much bigger, or if you will, like a bigger picture approach to understanding. And for someone like me that teaches and learns through rhythm, seeing that bigger perspective where you can connect dots, it's very important, because by rising, by just having this like omniscient view, you can find common denominators. And this is one of the keys to learn through rhythm. In that order, there is a super revealing scientific example that I love sharing with people to be able to see this higher perspective and understand rhythm from different points of view. And that has to do with how 2 and 3 can or are represented in the same way that we hear that in a clave, in the Abakwa, for example. 2 and 3, or numbers, can be represented and become common denominators, of levels, of cycles. And this is fascinating to me. Earth actually has 2 movements, 2 cycles, right? We have rotation through the 24 hours, and then the orbit, which is the 365.25. If you take the 24-hour cycle of Earth, you would see a full sequence, that's like a frequency. Then, in order for humans to be able to relate from the audible aspect to that particular frequency, we would need to bring it up 32 octaves higher. Octaves as musicians, kind of the frequency up of what it is equal to 32 octaves to be able to reach a note that we could listen to and relate to. That note is a G. In the same way, from the frequency perspective, the rhythm of that G is connected also with a color, which is the color red-orange. And in the same way, that particular frequency is resonated with a specific beat, which is 90 beats per minute. So you start seeing how all this kind of connects and interrelates. Now, when we take the orbit movement of the 365.25 days around the sun, in order for us to recognize that long cycle, we would have to actually bring it up again those 32 octaves higher to reach that tone and kind of connect from the audible spectrum specifically to that cycle. And once we bring it up, that long 365-day cycle, we reach another note, and that note is a C sharp. Those 2 notes are a tritone apart. This is a technical talk for musicians, but I'm sure that you're totally fine with this. In the same way that C sharp is connected with a color, that's a turquoise color, the frequency of that particular note. And that same frequency of that color and that particular tone is connected with a beat as well, and that is the 60 beats per minute. When you get the math relationship, that's 2 to 3, the 3 to 2 from the 90 to the 60, and then, the tritone and everything. And then by, examples like that, you realize how everything is connected and everything is just related, and you can find ways to just like see by kind of rising above the whole thing and having that kind of omniscient view, how rhythm is everywhere and is that common denominator of life itself. To me, this is fascinating, and it brings me to the conclusion that rhythm is the greatest teacher that we can have once we understand that bigger perspective. Learning through rhythm can be one of the most fun, exciting, revealing, and mind-opening experiences. So far, I've shown possibilities to understand rhythm from a bigger perspective, to find common denominators. And after understanding how frequency works in the cosmos, I think it is time to be able to convey all that information into the human body. For that, I use constantly a methodology that deals with the attention of the people, the retention of the information, and the integration of it. And I will demonstrate this by first bringing you into a beta state of learning. That means the brain waves will just go to that frequency where we are above 15 or 20 hertz. And then once we're at this level of learning with this particular way of seeing and feeling rhythm, we'll get into a second exercise that you can use and have as a homework if you want, to integrate and be able to create and fully immerse into the process of having rhythm as your teacher. So for this first neuroplasticity rhythmic exercise, I simply ask you to follow the next instructions. That's right. So you get it, right? Let's see. Next level. Yeah. Now, The intention behind the previous exercise is to get the beta waves in the brain very active. As you could see, and I understand that at the beginning it might be a little difficult to follow, but maybe when you watch this presentation again, you can follow up a little better. And the students and the people, after the second or third time really get it and start getting fun, trying to catch up with all these different signals. But the idea behind it is that you are focusing on, in this particular case, we used 4 points of attention in which we will just trying to create sounds, right? When you practice it on your own, you will hear the foot every time that you see that. And then the clap every time you see that, and try to be very precise with that, or the snap, or nothing right here. And for people or students or kids that are learning all this information at the beginning, when they receive it in a way that is quiet with nothing but just simple just signals, immediately the focus and the attention, it's very sharp, let's put it in that way. The studies have actually researched, and the things we've kind of like developed over the past decade or so exploring with this, is that as soon as you bring the room or the group into a quiet state and start showing this, the level of the brainwave goes from alpha or general attention to beta. A beta wave is a wave that can go up until 30 hertz per second. And in that sense, every time that we are going back and forth between the rhythms, the brain is, the 2 hemispheres and are interacting and creating throughout this, let's say, repetition or this retention of information, an integration that creates that neuroplasticity, meaning that the neurons become much stronger, or the connections between neurons become much stronger, and that information really enhances the capacity of the brain to learn. Now, once you put to that the physical body to play, and you're just doing the clapping and moving and going along with it, then it becomes a very integrated exercise, because it's not only about the physical activity, but the brain activity of repeating and going for all these points of attention. That strategy, or that pedagogic strategy, I call the attention retention integration. You bring the attention in the first place, and then you get the focus going. Then by repeating, they get into the retention part of it, and as time passes by, it can get really complex, and then they integrate that information and create these patterns for learning through rhythm that are extremely positive, especially with the results that we've experienced. It's very interesting to see how a simple repetition exercise that involves the body can be so beneficial. Just now that you understand and you listen to the explanation, just follow me for a bit here one more time, and you'll see that this second time for you is much easier to get into the flow of this neuroplasticity exercise. So you know it already. Let's see what we get to. So, how do you do? Try it. It's a very interesting and beneficial, again, exercise, especially in the classroom for kids. They have fun, and especially every time that we try it, people are laughing and having a good time, which is super important. Now, the reason why I started with this is because in the process of learning through rhythm, I have intentionally brought you to a state of attention that has your brain waves really active in beta levels. Right now, new neural pathways have been created in your brain. And for me, I'm gonna, this is a great point to be able to introduce a homework, if you will, for next week of some body percussion content and, rhythm through the voice and through the movement. I'm going to share with you the original version, which is in Spanish, to get you a new piece of information, and also for you to see how it connects with the body. And then I will share with you the version in English, which would be great if you can try. And it's just 4 rhythms and hopefully I'll give you the part for the integration once you try to come up with your own rhythms on your own later. So for the second exercise, so that we can dive even deeper into all this learning process through rhythm, also now that we've discussed and I've presented all this concept of the bigger picture of rhythm in order to be able to connect dots and find all these common denominators, but especially now that we've brought our brainwaves to that beta state that you're in right now, I hope, after doing the rhythmic neuroplasticity, it's time to introduce the Perk Body methodology. That's the methodology I've created to teach all these programs in South America, the same programs that I talked about at the beginning of the talk. And for this, I'm going to do it and break it down into the two parts, the way we teach this for teachers and the way we do it in the classroom. I would hope if you can have the time to get deeper into this, if you can eventually take this farther and be able to come up with your own text and rhythms, hopefully for next week, that would be amazing, because that would give us the opportunity to discuss how the process was for you on your own and creating your own words initially around the rhythms that I'm going to teach to you right now. But we'll have time to discuss this hopefully next week once you've gone through the talk a couple of times and learned all this in a much deeper way. So to clarify how it works, we teach the teachers first the methodology through understanding the body percussion parts first, which I'll do with you. Then we explain the text and the concept of the unit, of each unit. Then we'll go to integrate those two, and then to give some examples of how they can do it in the classroom. For the classroom, with the kids or the people that we teach, we do it backwards. We first teach the rhythmic voice, and I'll show you how we do it. Then we put the body percussion part to that, we integrate those two, and at the end, whenever there's time and more possibilities to develop further, we ask them to create their own text and rhythms. That would be the ultimate goal, to fully just immerse into a great rhythmic experience. I'm going to share with you 4 rhythms from Unit 1 of Perk Body, and those rhythms are the following for the body. So follow up with me. This is my right foot. Remember that you're probably seeing me backwards, so right foot, this is right side. Number 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 3, which is a much longer cycle, is the unison 1 of the unit. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can repeat that twice or as many times as you like. Number 4, which is the break number 1 of the unit. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's simple. So those are the 4 body percussion rhythms that I've chosen to teach you the Perk Body unit for this talk. Now, we go ahead after showing this and teaching this to the teachers to explain the concept and the words behind it. The first one, and I'm going to say this in Spanish, the original method it's in Spanish so that you understand it, is of rhythm 1, voy caminando, caminando, voy caminando, caminando. And this is how we apply it. We just teach them the phrase or the words behind it, and then we put it into the body and they practice it and they get it, right? In the same way, the second groove says, salgo por las calles, voy saltando. Tum. The third one, the longer one, is about, and I'll tell you the story in English very quick, but it's about skyscrapers and what happens around in the city. I'll get to this in a minute. The rhythm says 1, 2, 3, 4. Estos son los edificios desde arriba para abajo. Mira, hay muchos por aquí. Qué grandes son. And the last one is very simple because it's about just running, like jogging. And it says 1, 2, 3, 4. You guys have, as the additional material for this talk, the text in English of this unit. And those are, again, of the main groove. You'll see it in that extra PDF that I've left for you guys. Voice 1 and 2 are the first two rhythms that I just shared. The unison one is the long one, and the jogging one is the break number 1. The homework would be, now that you know the rhythms and you hopefully will practice them, to put the English words that you have along the body percussion part. And hopefully, you know, we'll have time to discuss and see how you did after the weekend. At the end, the important thing is to understand that rhythm is the key for this learning. It is that common denominator that identifies us all, and a key to an unlimited field of possibilities. The reason why I advocate to learn through rhythm is based on two main principles. And one of those you just experienced by doing the perk body methodology of the rhythms and the voice and putting those stories. The first one, the first principle, is to keep in mind the child essence within us. Let's be kids, to create, to share, to teach, to learn. Let's be at that level of playfulness where we can just, be completely open to knowledge, to exploring, to communicating, to, make jokes and laugh and enjoy. That's why the themes behind all these rhythms are connected with things that allow movement and jumping and jogging and dancing. The second concept is about education and how we perceive it and understand it. I've come to the conclusion that educating simply means sharing experience. And as soon as you include the concept of sharing, education gains a whole new meaning. A meaning that leaves behind hierarchies and absurd concepts of power and status between the ones that have the knowledge and the ones that don't, between the idea of abundance and the one of scarcity. For it takes nothing more than interacting with others, hopefully in a humble way, to share what has shaped our rhythm for a student or a whole planet to vibrate and evolve towards a higher collective knowledge and frequency of hope, equity, and well-being. Let us pursue our mission as educators by understanding the power and potential that rhythm has to connect, convey, and transform. Let us think deeper about the concept and dynamic of education. It is our birthright to be educated and therefore to educate. Let's acknowledge and respect each other's rhythm, but most of all, don't let us miss out from experiencing your rhythm, from listening to your voice, from exposing to us as your identity. Share it with us. Teach it to us. It is for sure the most valuable thing you can leave in this planet as your legacy. Each and every one of us in this virtual space, but especially every single one of your students in your classroom, needs your rhythm. The rhythm of humanity and human existence, with all these pulses, subdivisions, grooves, upbeats, downbeats, is the ultimate and most incredible and extraordinary manifestation of nature and creation. Acknowledging and truly integrating the power of that rhythm is the best way to honor life itself. Be responsible with the fact that you are rhythm. And with this in mind, I invite you to fulfill your mission in education by sharing your knowledge, by sharing your experience, by sharing your own voice. Go ahead, teach and share your rhythm with us.